It's Spoilerin time. This is a show where we take the hard work we do on our other show, Cordkillers, where we figure out how all this stuff works and then watch stuff and talk about it. This week, we're going to talk about the Hulu movie Happiest season, also episode 5, season 1 of Hannibal, and The Mandalorian, season 2, episode 7. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Hey, man. And we are joined by Hollywood's very own Meryl Barr. Thank you for joining us, Meryl.
I'm back again, baby. Can't get rid of me. Unlike that other bar in the other place that no one likes. You all like me.
Not retiring by Christmas, Meryl Barr.
Hey, Tom, assuming
Yes,
you haven't
Brian.
already talked it to death, what did you think of this week's Mandalorian?
Let's talk about The Mandalorian season 2, episode 7, which is always annoying that it's called episode 7 because it's also chapter 15, The Believer, the penultimate episode in The Mandalorian. And I was a big fan of Bill Burr's performance in this. Didn't love that heist episode last season, but I thought he was pretty great. In this is one of those episodes that has a lot of things for me to pick on and go like, well, why would they do it that way? And okay, but I had fun. I had fun with the chase scene into the base. I had fun with Bill Burr just kind of being like, you know what, I'm just going to shoot you because I'm tired of your BS. And it was very convoluted why he had to go to the ATM and take his helmet off. But hey, we finally got his helmet off and we got to see Pablo Pascal's face. Pedro Pascal, sorry.
How I feel about this is, remember how I felt on the episode you all didn't like? I feel like I want more episodes like this where we're going to do a standalone adventure, but it is tied to the overall mythology.
The
it
end
feels like it's tied to
in.
Right. It's if the end result that pushes us forward. Like I really enjoyed this episode, and upon a rewatch, I was like, I really enjoyed this episode. It tracks in a really clean way. I thought the sniper battle at the end was really fun. I did enjoy seeing Pedro Pascal, and I really hope that pays off later on when I hope he goes to meet the armor again. The armor goes, "Has anyone seen your face?" And he has to go, "Yes." Like I really kind of hope that happens. And then she goes, "Well, you know what? That's all kind of bullshit anyway." Like it's all kind of BS.
Was
Anyway,
it Mayfield? Because he doesn't really count. That's fine.
I thought it was a fine framework, train heist. A bit on the nose that just 2 or 3 episodes ago we saw him do exactly the thing that the pirates did, and he was just in the alternate role of the ones flying the ship. I thought that was subtle enough, and they didn't hit us over the head with it. I understand we have to get the coordinates for the MacGuffin and all of that. And I think at this point, I really believe that the Mandalorian cares very deeply for Grogu. But I gotta tell you, just everything about I liked Bill Burr a lot in his previous performance. I thought he was a credible piece of garbage, and I thought that all of his snideness and Boston accent and everything really played for somebody who I don't trust at all. But in this episode, he, I guess everyone has a heart of gold, and everyone's, oh, are they good and interesting? Well, then heaven forbid any of them should ever be anything other but secretly a good guy, and yet just throw another good guy onto the bonfire.
This is not The Shield, though. This is Mandalorian. So that doesn't surprise me.
I know, but but they weren't afraid to give us that grit in the Ahsoka episode that I thought was excellent. And they had an opportunity, especially with Bill Burr, to continue to make me uncomfortable, and they just made everyone likable and good, and whatever. It's their show.
Was he likable though? Like the only thing he did good was shoot the guy at the end, and I felt like that was more because he was just annoyed about the fact that he devalued his compatriots. Mayfield was just somebody who values the people he knows over the officers. It wasn't that he had a heart of gold. I still don't think that's true.
Well, he was a little bit wackier this iteration than he was previously.
Right.
Similar to the guy, was it Horatio Sands was playing, like suddenly he's He's the live but slightly overweight
I
comic
ate
relief.
that up. I liked Mayfeld kind of needling Mando and pointing out the like, so is it that you can't take your helmet off or you can't show your face because those are different things, and just kind of poking at him. I thought that was fun.
It also tracks with the character where last time they were on a job, right? They had their game faces on. This time it wasn't really. This was more of an opportunity for Mayfield to poke at Mando in a way where he didn't get to poke at Mando before. Also because the power dynamic was different. Before, he was like, Mando, I need you to help us on a job. Like, you need cash, I can give you cash. So you're really my employee. So I'm not gonna poke at you because I need you to be your best. Now he's like, look, man, I got nothing to lose. Like, I'm as far as he knows at that moment, I'm going back to prison or I'm dying either way. There's not really a win scenario here for me. So you know what? I'm just going to poke at you now because screw you. Like, it makes sense for the character.
Yeah, I don't know. He was just a bit more comical than I was comfortable with. Just like Pedro Pascal, once he took off the helmet, was a bit too doe-eyed and overwhelmed for me to reconcile with how I perceive the Mandalorian.
No. Okay, this may not change your thinking on this, but someone pointed out that what Pedro Pascal was doing there was acting like someone who never uses their peripheral vision because they always wear a helmet. So he's partly doe-eyed because he's freaked out about taking his helmet off, but also he looks straight forward because that's what he's in the habit of doing.
Sure. But like the loss of confidence in his words, and you could say that's an intentional artistic choice to convey that absent his armor, he's vulnerable in a way that he never is. And so when somebody asks him, what his name is, he stammers in his unit, and he's like, blah, 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 blah. Yes, all that.
He's an internet troll. Without the anonymity that the mask provides him, he can't be a dick.
It could be that simple. I just by the time it was over, I liked the episode more, but I don't know what was different about the way Bill Burr was presented in this episode that was different from the first one, because I loved him first go around. Really, it just wasn't a match for me this go round, and I wish I could be more specific on that. It was just, I think he was just a bit too wacky and a bit too jolly.
Too jolly. All right. What about Valen Hess, aka the Night King from seasons 4 and 5 of Game of Thrones?
Was he the commander that got shot?
He was the down south commander.
Man, I would have loved to have, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot more evil in him that I would have liked to have experienced. It's a terrible thing for me to say.
I think what you're really getting at is he feels like a character who would have really served a multi-episode arc, and to kill him off so haphazardly is just like, I kind of would have loved to see them go to battle more.
Yeah, right.
Bummer.
It's like even Moff Gideon. When we see Moff Gideon, yes, we know he's the big bad guy, and he's the big bad guy for a reason. But mostly we see Moff Gideon just, like we said, waving a Darksaber in front of a kid, and which I felt real menace from this guy, and it made me want to be like, yes, make me very afraid of you.
What about the end scene where Din sends a hologram to Moff Gideon, parroting back what Moff Gideon had said to him? When we first see Moff Gideon with the Darksaber at the end of season 1, he says, that child means more to me than you could ever know. And Mando says the same thing in this message.
I am ashamed to admit that totally blew right past me, and I did not catch that.
It blew right past me until I was resetting the episode and saw the previously on and went, oh, wait, that's what he just said. And I was like, okay, now I finally put it together. So I didn't notice it myself.
That's why I think the art of recaps is lost in streaming, like for reasons like this, because most people are not going to remember that. But as far as doing it, a great narrative device, great callback. I thought that's like, you want to piss someone off, you throw their words back in their face. Like this is a great setup for the next week's finale, I think.
I thought it was silly. Why would you tell him you're coming? Just show up. surprise advantage. Now he's gonna be ready for you.
Because I think part of Mando's thing is he wants to take away your confidence by scaring you by intimidation. So he thinks by putting himself up front, he'll then cause Moff Gideon and people around him to sort of stutter enough that they fall off their game. I think that's
I'm with you, Tom. I actually thought it was silly, and then when you pointed out that he was saying the same words, I cut myself off for fear that I was a bad person, because it felt so stapled on, so unnecessary, so tactically
it's dramatic
futile.
Tension. This is storytelling.
It served no tactical purpose whatsoever. It was a move that was so incompetent that I have a hard time allowing myself to believe that the Mandalorian would do it.
Did you feel something?
No.
Because I felt something. I felt his anger.
No. I really didn't. Because
when I skipped back to the previously on and noticed he was saying the same thing, I finally did feel something then. And I was like, oh, so he's parroting back the thing. Oh, okay, I get it now.
Also, it's hard for me to feel his anger when I'm not given the opportunity to really feel his love. And it's certainly implied, and he certainly says the kid matters a lot to me, and he certainly has actions that
I believe the kid matters to him because we saw that whole scene at the beginning of the last episode where he's like trying to convince himself, like, okay, when we find the Jedi, I'm going to have to hand you over. Like that really built it. That really worked for me. I feel like, oh, okay, he really does not want to let Grogu go.
Yeah.
I will add one more thing on the tactical conversation, and is this: Moff Gideon knows the Mandalorian's coming, and the Mandalorian knows that Moff Gideon knows he's coming for the kid. Like, there's no that is the expectation. So what surprise is he really ruining by saying I'm coming? Yeah, no shit. We know you're coming. Like,
I still don't think you really send a dramatic message like that. It struck a weird chord with me.
Yeah, I look forward
but you're
to.
Right. It's not like he really loses a surprise.
Yeah, we'll see, and it could be that a lot of my meagrums about this episode will pay off in a future episode. But I'll tell you this much: I like this episode 10 times more than I like the previous episode. Last episode was just too much, too fast, no time to soak it in. This episode really felt like they stuck to the pacing that was appropriate for a train heist. And
yeah, we discovered in Aftertalk why particularly that episode may have not worked for Brian. So check last week's Aftertalk if you haven't already, or become a patron and check it out if you're not. All right. Any other thoughts on The Mandalorian chapter 15, The Believer?
I did not realize that we're up to the end now. That's crazy.
Yeah. I just had this thought while you guys were talking, because we've been talking a lot on Let's Talk About Star Wars about, like, well, what does he do when he finally, needs to let Grogu go? Like, what's he going to do after he finds his home? I just realized he's never going to do that. There's no Jedi out there, like, except for Luke. He's not going to find Luke, and he's going to keep the kid with him.
Find Luke?
One of the interesting ideas I heard is maybe it's not a Jedi. Maybe it's a Sith that shows up.
I think they just don't give him to anybody.
Too cynical.
Mando won't let him go. He'll be like, "This is my pal. This is my buddy."
No, I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be Luke. I think Mark Hamill's showing up in season 3, and it's gonna be this conversation of.
You made sounds for what my soul just did. Because the moment I heard it, I was like, "Oh God, that is something they would do, wouldn't it?"
I think Mark Hamill's gonna show up, and Mark Hamill's gonna essentially parody what Ahsoka said, but in a more kinder, fatherly way of, look, he's been through too much. The best thing for him is he stays with you, but you can develop him and you can train him, and he trains him to be a Mandalore.
I love the idea of he's just broken. He cares too much, and he's always going to be broken, but you're kind of broken too. And between the two of you, you've created a whole, and that's okay. And then that's the lesson. I love that idea, is that there's no completion of any quest. It's like, nope, the two of you guys just run around. You're both kind of broke. You were raised by a crazy cult. You care too much to be trusted with any real Jedi stuff. The end.
See, I sort of love the idea that Mando would never, he'll decide that no one he meets qualifies. Like, well, but you're not really a Jedi, or, well, but you aren't the Jedi that he came from. And so it'll be a never ending quest where he tells himself and others that he's trying to return Grogu to his people, but he will always find a reason why that isn't happening.
Yeah, I would love it if they gave up trying sooner rather than later, because that would be a lot of fun to see two broken, awesome people for different reasons go off and pick up a new arc and quest or whatever.
That is The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 7. Let's talk about Hannibal Season 1, Episode 5, called, what are we up to now? Coquille? Is this the...
Yeah, I know next episode is Entree.
Oh, finally. I've been so hungry.
Yeah, coquille is French for dumb small talk that you do before the meal.
Is it really?
No.
I think it's pronounced cockles.
And mussels.
Because I would imagine the French would have a word for that, to be honest.
Anticlimactic, no?
This one feels like table setting, a little bit of getting ready to get ready.
Here's what I liked about this episode is that I felt like, at first I was like, we're back to the monster of the week. And then I realized that half the episode is not about the monster of the week. And what we're doing is we're slowly showing that the cases that he has to solve are sidelines. That Will Graham's relationship with Hannibal is becoming ascendant. We got a lot more about Jack Crawford and his wife, Zoe, or whatever. What's the actual name?
No. It's Morpheus and Zoe.
Right. No, it's
names.
Bella, because that's not her actual name, but he called her that. Okay, yeah. Morpheus and Zoe's relationship has now become a thing, and I'm interested. I'm interested in why Hannibal's interested. And I realized by the end that while the Angels thing I thought was an interesting storyline, and I was curious why this guy was doing it, that we were just kind of, probably because this is on broadcast TV, slowly bringing people over to the idea that the monster of the week is really not the focus, and that we might even continue to have them, but they're going to be in the background. They're not the real story that's being told.
What I liked about it was, yes, in general, a monster of the week you could excise from the corpus of the general show and be fine. But in this case, it could be reduced to working on a case. Morpheus realizes why Zoe's behavior is the way it is, like that. And it just happened to be that it was the monster of the week that led him to figure out, oh my God, you're dying, aren't you? And then I found that rather powerful. I think their relationship is credible. I think that she's the type of badass and hard woman that it takes to be married to a man like Lawrence Fishburne's character, whose name I should probably know by now.
Jack Crawford.
I thought it was that arc I thought was strong enough that I didn't mind that it was a monster of a week and you had to see some, pretty imagery and that kind of stuff. And yeah, Will just seems kind of like he's spinning around in circles, but so are we as the audience, overwhelmed by episode 5.
Sleepwalking in circles, literally. Yeah.
I mean, the thing I think we shouldn't ignore here is that the thing we haven't talked about at all, because it's very not in the episode, is anything related to Hannibal's arc. Like, I feel like he has
I love that we get a little bit of breathing room, and Hannibal's just a straight character, or at least seems to be in this episode.
Well, it's kind of sinister in terms of like all of our main characters now have a professional relationship with Hannibal, or a therapeutic relationship with Hannibal, right? You've got Lawrence Fishburne and his wife. You've got the dang Will. You obviously, we saw that he had a relationship with the daughter from the initial case. I mean, he's got his tendrils everywhere now, and that's some tension.
Yeah, they're puppets on the end of his strings.
And they did give just enough of the creepiness with him smelling everyone. Like, that was just the right amount of unprofessional really creepiness.
I like that they didn't make it some big like thing. It was very just like,
did you just smell me?
Well, but they also, I took that as implied, like he's on to the fact that Will's self-medicating with alcohol and losing track of himself and all that stuff. Yeah, I thought this was a better episode because of its subtlety, Meryl. And you're right in that there wasn't nearly the payoff that we've seen from other things. But as we've established talking about Mandalorian, I guess I'm a bigger fan of soaking in certain ideas for a bit.
Yeah. It's table setting episode. The last episode was really interesting. The one before this is with the kids and Hannibal really getting into it with Abigail Hobbs. Like I thought it was that was really good. And then this episode just feels like we're just gonna kind of throw some stuff in there before we go. Everything kind of kicks off in the next episode, I assume.
I'll say like this show has really given my expectations whiplash, right? Initially it was like, oh, maybe this will be Monster of the Week, and then we spent so much time on that initial case, and now we're kind of back on a Monster of the Week sort of thing. And I think that is actually like a really interesting dynamic. But this is the second week in a row where I feel like the results at the end of the episode is we did it, we learned everything about, these murders and stuff. And maybe that's a more, for lack of a better word, a more modern idea of wanting to know more about true crime stuff. But like we really, I feel unresolved from last week's episode. And I feel because the guy died in this episode, the murderer died or killed himself. We really never got a button on what was that imagery that he was seeing? What did he believe that, right? Like we never saw inside of his head other than those visions of the flaming heads.
Yeah.
Bryce, do you feel you need guidance because you are so misdirected by these episodes?
Oh goodness, don't get me started.
Yeah, you can't smell us over the internet, weirdo.
He can smell you in the same room though. So
well, yeah. But I don't know. I don't know whether I like that. I feel like I don't like that because I really wanted to know more about the kids, the serial killer kids and Molly Shannon last week, and I just wanted another hint. Maybe this is Will's tension that he's not getting the closure on these cases.
I actually was thankful that, oh, good, an episode that doesn't end with the bad guy getting shot. And, you would assume some of them would just off themselves or whatever. Yeah. So now, granted, like I was thinking a lot about the logistics of how does one even do that to themselves?
Very hard to do by yourself.
But so what would you? How would you make sure? Because you need a mirror.
And then the cut. Right. And at what point do you cut versus climb up the ladder? And then the hooks. And like, I'm surprised
do you pre-cut like perforations? So
maybe a special knot so that you leap off a thing and it all kind of tear.
A block of ice.
Yeah. A robot.
See our webisode.
It was exactly the ghost. Okay, I don't see why this is.
Obviously. Okay. Any other notes on Hannibal?
Nope. It's growing on me. I really, really liked that they gave so much breathing room to Zoe and Morpheus. I like that.
By the way, I looked up Gina Torres in IMDb just now. She was in The Matrix Revolutions and Reloaded.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so you could also say Morpheus and Cass, but
Gina Torres was all over TV for a minute because she had this and Suits going at the same time when Hannibal was out.
Oh right, she was in Suits too. I forgot about that. Yeah,
and the spinoff that they did that I worked on.
Awesome,
cool.
Look at that. Did you meet Meghan Markle?
I did not. Everyone asked me that. She was nowhere near the spinoff.
That's Hannibal.
Every time I say I worked on that show, the first question is, did you meet Meghan Markle? Every time, without fail.
Did you meet Prince Harry? That is Hannibal, season 1, episode 5. All right, we are going to talk about Happiest Season, but Meryl, you didn't watch it. Do you need to jump, or are you just going to?
I'm going to stick around the live stream, but I'm going to head out of this particular episode.
All right, so if folks want to find out where they should go to follow you, where should they go?
Twitter.com/Meryl Barr, MERRILLBARR. I will see you all at After Talk.
Thank you, Meryl. All right, so our other watch for this week was Happiest Season, a romantic comedy film directed by Clea Duvall that was supposed to go into theaters, but, there's not a lot of theaters open for it to go into, so it came to Hulu instead and was released November 25th. I watched it with my wife this weekend, and it was just a lovely holiday exercise. This is a story about Abby Holland and Harper Caldwell, a couple who've been dating nearly a year, but Harper is not out to her parents, and through a series of miscommunications and unfortunate events, Harper brings Abby home for Christmas and has to hide the fact that they're in a relationship because her parents don't know, and her father is running for mayor, and her mom is like this like socialite, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What y'all think?
I had very high expectations for this because it's a simple story, and I think there's a lot of comedy in hiding things. I think Clue is an excellent example of a bunch of people conspiring to hide things from other people. I paused it to check times. I spent 1 hour and 11 minutes of increasingly hating every single person on screen except for Abby. It was everyone was awful and unlikable. And
Riley wasn't awful.
Riley, she was the one person that started at a lower point, and I liked more later on. I wished more. You're right. Riley is the exception, but Riley never really got a chance to shine or sing for me. And even Abby, at some point, I'm just like, girl, would you stick up for yourself? Everyone in this movie is awful. Every single person in this movie is increasingly awful.
She does stick up for herself and walks out, even after the revolution. That was the whole cool thing at the end. Is like, there, I did it, right? And she's like, yeah, too late, sorry.
Yeah, that occurred at 1 hour and 37 minutes into the movie. But
that's how these movies are, right? You build all that stuff up.
That's correct. But for the first hour and 11 minutes, I did not laugh and did not like the people. And
you didn't like John? Daniel Levy?
The guy who introduced himself as the guy who tracks people and then admonishes the people at home for not remembering that he's the guy that tracks people. And there's a clever second layer underneath it. Oh, wait, just kidding. There is no clever second layer underneath it. That's literally his whole character.
It's the Chekhov's gun. It's the Chekhov's gun at the end of the movie.
Yes. Okay. Even Chekhov knew to only show the gun once.
Okay.
Also, you're expecting way too much of this kind of movie. That's just a cultural reference of like, see, everybody tracks each other these days. Ha ha ha. And then they actually used it. So for this kind of movie, I felt that was sort of exceptionally complex, that they're like, oh wow, they actually used it in the plot. Cool.
What was the funniest part to you guys? The funniest scene.
I didn't think it was a laugh out loud thing, and I didn't expect it to be.
All right, forget about that question. New question. Who was your favorite character?
Aubrey Plaza, Riley. Absolutely.
Okay. I liked Abby quite a lot. Obviously, she's our main character.
I agree.
Also liked Abby. I thought John was great. Jane was cool. I actually thought they did more with Jane than I expected.
Jane's the little sister.
Sloane was interesting. Yes. Sloane got a little depth toward the end.
Alison Brie's
I liked a lot of these characters.
Wow.
I had hoped going into this that I wouldn't set your expectations that high, because this is still at the end of the day a romantic comedy holiday movie, right?
Right.
But in terms of the different topics being broached, like this is a story about injustice, and then a sudden rush of the feeling of justice, right? So I don't think you get there without having bad people turn good.
Yeah, but also none of the bad people paid any price at all.
That's
the dad
not
became
that
the mayor.
He became the mayor after paying the price of foregoing the support that he thought he needed to become mayor.
Yes, that was a very tense 90 seconds between us finding out that he was the mayor and
Brian,
turning down the
funding.
funding.
None of the things you're saying are wrong.
You're right.
But here's the problem is you need to train for this by watching all the episodes of Princess Switched and Christmas Prince and set them there in your estimation.
And again, it's
fine if you don't like it. I'm not trying to.
I just
Yeah. Here's a question. Did you watch this just you, or did you watch it with
I
any of
watched
the kids?
it just me and gave it my full attention for 1 hour and 37 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
102 minutes.
That's your problem. I think if you watched it with any of the family, you probably would have liked it more.
Yeah.
And I think that
Or
that's
not
definitely
paid
true because
100%
I enjoyed
attention.
it watching it with Eileen.
And
for sure.
I do think the 100% attention thing probably
I'm surprised you did that
as well. Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah, I played some solitaire.
And to be honest, if I was playing Hearthstone, I might have a different review. Which, but in this case, yeah, fair. For good or for ill, I definitely sat and gave it my full attention.
I think, and that's an issue of perspective. I mean, every time I've talked about it, I've tried not to hype it up too much because it's a good one of these, but it's still one of these movies. And
It's still one of these. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really important that you not go into it thinking that it's, high concept prestige drama. Like this is a long
This
Three's
isn't
Company's
reinventing
episode.
the romantic comedy.
Yeah,
This is just
and that
making
probably
a more modern setting.
is my unfair self-imposed expectations. Like, given the all-star cast, there's this temptation.
I love this cast. I don't
Exactly.
think-
It's like, oh my
I mean,
gosh, what if they took these tropes and because I've seen like Isn't It Romantic? I thought was hilarious. It was an awesome send-up of the romantic comedy that had many jokes that I can quote for you that were great moments. And this one was more situational and I just felt bad. It just felt so bad for Abby the whole movie long. And I don't want to go to a romantic comedy to feel bad, increasinging bad.
And like I'll say that one of the big things in the plus column for me is that there are not a lot of queer movies that are not about people getting AIDS and dying or any combination of those two things. And so to get a like kind of slice of life story in that angle, for if you're on the outside of this and it feels like I'm giving it brownie points, congrats, I am, because I don't have any movies. Sorry about it. And so even little stuff like the inciting where they're in the car ride and she breaks it to her, oh, hey, actually you need to like that really hit me. Like I could really imagine myself there being like, oh my God, if you did that to me, I mean, I would get out of the car. Like it was very funny that the sequence of events is that they're driving and she says it, and then the next shot is them pulled over on the side of the road, and I was like, that is exactly the very next thing I would do is stop the car. We're not moving 1 inch until we figure this out. And so that's a part of it in terms of slightly on the edge of outside of the movie stuff for me.
Yeah, and I did dig the scene where Dan Levy puts in perspective, like, hey, not everyone has a great coming out experience, and I was
well done.
definitely
I thought there were
hungry
a few good scenes like
for more of that. Yeah.
And the other thing I realized after watching this movie was this movie made in 1998 is an entirely different premise.
It would have been
right? There's
extraordinary.
no stopping and pulling over in the car on the way home. It's a nail biter from the beginning because we all know that we can't be out, right? I think it's very interesting that you can have a movie where some people are like, wait, you haven't come out to your parents? Why not? Like, or not so much why not, but why didn't you tell me that? That's an important thing that I should have known.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Versus it just being presumed that, well, no one's out to anybody, right? Which is what it would have been 20 years ago.
I was talking to a friend about this movie the other day, yesterday, and it reminded me that, like, on paper, this almost is very similar to, those movies that they were doing with Gary
Alien
Marshall,
franchise.
like New Year's Day and Valentine, the holiday-based movies where they got all the big stars and it would just be around a holiday. It almost reminded me of that because of how many actors and actresses I knew and thought like were a real big draw, but also it's not one of those crappy Gary Marshall movies. It's someone else who wrote it, directed.
Also, you could just put Aubrey Plaza in something. I'll love it. I mean,
yeah, it was nice. It was nice to see her as not April Ludgate.
Not April Ludgate, not weird.
Not a maladaptive sociopath.
yeah.
Just kind of a normal,
like, sort of a normal friend who went through some stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting to hear your take for Sirius, Brad, because like
yeah, well, and again, I'll be quick to admit that it definitely suffered from me setting my expectations too high, and it within the realm of as you guys put it, that movie, it's fine, that movie, but having seen a couple of that movies that break that ceiling, like the conceit of isn't it romantic, that self-awareness or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, they don't all have to be self-aware, but in terms of pacing and setup, punchline, and tension and all that stuff, I didn't get as much of that as I'd hoped for, i.e. any, and man, did I just increasingly find everyone but Abby especially Abby's partner. Partner.
Yeah. Harper's bad.
Awful person. That was an awful thing that she did the whole movie long. She was awful.
But also,
she never got unawful.
Yeah. Yes. And sometimes the people that we love are awful.
Okay.
I mean,
like, for example, there's this movie I was really excited about. I got my friend Schmeyen to watch it.
But it wasn't until we just started this, and hearing your perspectives, like, I also probably, it does have funny moments, but I do think it's more of a drama than a comedy in some respects. I'm not.
No, you're right.
I'm not the type of person to count
laughing out loud a
jokes and
couple of
punchlines.
times, but I couldn't tell you what they were.
Right.
Yeah.
Like John on our staff is very obsessed with like watching a comedy, and when he's like, there are no punchlines or no setups, and I'm like, okay, well, you can have fun. You can have funny. It can be funny and not a traditional joke or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to remember the drama and the romance from this more than any punchline.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like the closest to an actual joke, and again, I'm no longer harping on this, but Dan Levy with the fish, and asking the totally unrelated question,
and
where would I get an identical
the Jonad being one of the mall cops.
The mall cops were a fun little surprise.
I laughed out loud. That reminds me. I laughed out loud when the woman came in and turned on the lights. It was very clear they were just in the back room with the lights off. I was like, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm not saying you had to laugh.
No.
All right. Any other thoughts on what may or may not have been the happiest season? All right, folks. Well, that is it for this episode of Spoilerin Time. Next week on Spoilerin Time, the Mandalorian season finale, Hannibal 106. And I guess we're going to start watching the Stand miniseries, right?
I am so fascinated to see how culturally that show lands, given the fact that it's 2020. Like,
all right, folks. Yeah. Tune in next week to find out. You get these episodes earlier. If you're a patron, get them right after we record them, Monday or Tuesday, patreon.com/Cordkillers. Until next time, we'll see you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.